From bullied nobody to legendary S-rank hunter, Ren Kizaregi's life changes forever when he's abandoned in a deadly dungeon. Transformed by arcane magic, his new powers turn the overweight, shy victim into a lean, powerful mage. Now he must master his abilities to protect humanity from the intelligent dungeons invading Earth from another realm. The morning bell echoed through the halls of Shinmai High School as Ren Kizaragi shuffled toward his classroom, keeping his gaze fixed on the floor. At 16, he had perfected the art of moving through crowds without being noticed, or so he thought. "Look who rolled in today," a voice called out, followed by snickers. Ren hunched his shoulders, making himself as small as his overweight frame would allow, and quickened his pace. The classroom offered little sanctuary. Ren slid into his desk at the back corner, the chair creaking under his weight. A few students glanced his way, their expressions a mixture of indifference and barely concealed disdain. Ms. Takeda began the morning announcements, her voice taking on a serious tone. "As you all know, another dungeon appeared in Shibuya yesterday. The Defense Bureau has contained it, but everyone is reminded to keep their emergency kits updated and evacuation routes memorized. Dungeon appearances have become a global crisis over the past year. No one knew why these supernatural structures suddenly began manifesting, bringing monsters and strange phenomena into the world. Scientists theorized dimensional rifts, religious groups claimed divine punishment, conspiracy theorists blamed secret government experiments. Whatever the cause, dungeons had changed everything." Additionally, Ms. Takeda continued, "Hunter recruitment representatives will be visiting next week for Career Day. Students with an interest in dungeon-related professions should prepare questions." Whispers of excitement rippled through the classroom. Becoming a hunter, someone certified to enter dungeons and harvest their resources, meant fame, wealth, and respect. Everything Ren didn't have. "Bet you couldn't even fit through a dungeon entrance," a classmate muttered just loud enough for Ren to hear. More snickers followed. Ren focused on his notebook, sketching intricate patterns instead of taking notes. His drawings were the only thing he took pride in, detailed magical circles and runic designs inspired by online hunter forums. Not that he'd ever tell anyone about his secret fascination with arcane magic. By afternoon, the day had devolved into Ren's personal nightmare: physical education. The class gathered on the field for their fitness assessments. "Kizaragi, you're up for the sprint." Coach Mori's voice boomed across the field. Ren's heart pounded against his ribs as he took his position at the starting line. The timer beeped, and he pushed his body forward, legs straining, lungs burning. He could hear the laughter before he even reached the halfway mark. His classmates weren't even trying to hide it anymore. "Move it, Lardball," someone shouted. When he finally crossed the finish line, red-faced and gasping, Coach Mori didn't bother hiding his disappointment. 1 minute and 27 seconds. That's worse than last month, Kizaragi. The rest of the class had their turns, most finishing in under 30 seconds. Kaito Shimada, the class star athlete, completed the sprint in 18 seconds flat, earning admiring comments and high fives. He shot Ren a smirk afterward. "Maybe dungeons aren't so bad. They might make Fatso here disappear," Kaito said loudly, causing an eruption of laughter. Coach Mori half-heartedly admonished the comment before moving on to the next exercise. Ren stood at the edge of the group, wishing he could indeed disappear. The humiliation continued through push-ups and pull-ups. During the latter, Ren couldn't even pull himself up once, hanging from the bar like dead weight until Coach Mori sighed and told him to stop trying. As the class headed back toward the locker rooms, an alarm suddenly blared across the school grounds. 3 long, piercing sounds followed by a voice over the PA system. "This is a dungeon emergency alert. A spatial anomaly has been detected on school premises. All students and staff must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill." Panic erupted instantly. Students ran in all directions despite the evacuation drills they had practiced. Teachers emerged from classrooms trying to establish order. "Stay in line. Follow evacuation route B," Coach Mori shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Ren found himself pushed and shoved as students stampeded toward the exits. Someone's elbow connected with his stomach, knocking the wind out of him. He doubled over, losing his balance as feet trampled past him. "Help," he gasped, but no one stopped. No one even looked back. A strange sensation washed over the field. A ripple in the air that made the hairs on Ren's arms stand up. He looked up to see reality itself seeming to crack like glass splintering in slow motion. Through the fractures, darkness pulsed. Ren tried to stand, but a sharp pain shot through his ankle. He must have twisted it when he fell. Dragging himself toward the nearest building, he glanced back to see the cracks widening, the air shimmering with unnatural energy. "Is anyone still out there?" a distant voice called. "I'm here," Ren shouted, waving his arms. "Over here." But his voice was drowned out by another sound, the deep, resonant groan of space tearing open. The fractures expanded suddenly, darkness spilling out and engulfing part of the field. Where there had been grass and dirt, there now appeared stone floors and ancient-looking walls. A dungeon entrance materializing right in the schoolyard. Final head count, Ren heard someone shout from beyond the school gates. Is everyone accounted for? Fear gripped Ren's heart as he realized what was happening. They were doing a roll call outside the school grounds, while he was still inside, only meters away from a forming dungeon. I'm still here, he screamed, his voice breaking in terror. The darkness continued to spread unnaturally fast. Ren abandoned his attempt to stand and began crawling away from the manifestation, dragging his injured leg behind him. He had almost reached the school building when something struck the back of his head, hard. Stars exploded across his vision as he collapsed face first onto the ground. Through blurring consciousness, he saw a piece of debris that must have been thrown out from the forming dungeon. The last thing Ren registered before blackness claimed him was the sensation of the ground beneath him changing, from soft grass to cold, hard stone. The air grew thick with the scent of dust and decay. And then nothing. When Ren's eyes fluttered open, he found himself in darkness so complete it felt solid. His head throbbed where he'd been struck, and his mouth tasted of blood. Disoriented, he pushed himself up to sitting position. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing strangely. "Is anyone there?" No answer came. As his eyes gradually adjusted, vague shapes emerged from the darkness, stone walls carved with unfamiliar symbols, a high ceiling lost in shadows, and a floor made of worn flagstones. A faint blue glow emanated from somewhere deeper in the chamber, providing just enough light to confirm Ren's worst fear. He wasn't at school anymore. He wasn't even in the normal world. Ren Kizareji, the boy nobody wanted, the boy nobody would miss, was trapped alone inside a dungeon. The blue glow pulsed faintly, drawing Ren forward like a moth to flame. Each step echoed in the vast chamber, his ragged breathing the only other sound. The air tasted stale and ancient, carrying an undertone of something metallic that reminded him of blood. "Hello," Ren called again, knowing no answer would come. The evacuation had been complete, except for him. No one would realize he was missing for hours, maybe days. The thought made his stomach clench. He reached for his phone but found only shattered remains in his pocket. The screen had been crushed, likely during his fall. Ren fought back tears of frustration. Even if the device had survived, he doubted there would be reception inside a dungeon. The blue light grew stronger as he approached a corridor branching off from the main chamber. Carved into the stone of the passageway was a symbol, a crescent moon pierced by a dagger. Ren had seen enough hunter documentaries to recognize it. A hidden-type dungeon, he whispered, blood turning cold. Hidden dungeons were among the rarest and most dangerous classifications, labyrinths that actively concealed themselves, often appearing briefly before vanishing again, taking anything inside with them. Even if S-rank hunters avoided these if possible, the mortality rate approached 100%. And here he was, an overweight, untrained high school student with no weapons, no supplies, and a throbbing ankle that sent pain shooting up his leg with each step. Ren leaned against the cold stone wall, sliding down until he sat on the floor. His mind raced through what little he knew about dungeons. They operated by their own rules, often containing monsters, traps, and occasionally valuable resources. The government had established the hunter system to explore and clear them, classifying both dungeons and hunters by rank from E to S. Hidden dungeons were exclusively S-rank territory. "Mom," he whispered, the word escaping before he could stop it. The thought of his mother finding out he was trapped here, or worse, never knowing what happened to him, made his chest tighten painfully. Memories flooded back. His mother working double shifts to support them after his father left when Ren was 8. Her tired smile when she'd come home and find him drawing at the kitchen table. The way she ruffled his hair and said, "My little artist, always creating worlds." She was the only one who believed in him, who saw past his size and shyness. "You're meant for something more, Ren," she would say. "One day, everyone will see what I see." What would she do if he never came home? The thought jolted him from his self-pity. He couldn't sit here feeling sorry for himself. He had to find a way out, for her sake, if not his own. Ren pushed himself to his feet, wincing as he tested his weight on the injured ankle. It hurt, but he could walk. The blue glow seemed to be coming from crystals embedded in the walls of the corridor. With no better option, he began following them deeper into the dungeon. The passage twisted and turned, sometimes widening into chambers filled with strange stone formations, other times narrowing until Ren had to turn sideways to squeeze through. He kept track of his path by dragging his finger along the right wall, a maze-solving technique he'd read about. After what felt like hours, the corridor opened into a vast cavern. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into darkness, and the blue crystals grew larger here, illuminating an underground lake of black water that stretched to the far edges of the space. The surface was mirror-smooth, reflecting the crystal light like stars on a night sky. Ren's dry throat ached at the sight of water, but he knew better than to drink it. Nothing in a dungeon was safe without testing. Instead, he scanned the cavern for another exit. On the far side, barely visible, was an archway. The only way forward was to circle the lake. Ren had taken only a few steps when he heard it, a soft splashing sound from the water. He froze, heart hammering against his ribs. Something moved beneath the surface, creating ripples that distorted the reflected light. He backed away slowly, eyes fixed on the water. Whatever it was there hadn't surfaced yet. If he moved quietly enough, maybe he could reach the archway without. His foot caught on a loose stone. The resulting clatter echoed throughout the cavern. The water erupted. A creature lunged from the depths, sleek, amphibian, with too many limbs ending in hooked claws. Its head was eyeless, mouth a circular maw lined with rows of needle-like teeth. Water streamed from its pale, luminescent skin as it oriented toward the sound Ren had made. Ren ran. Pain forgotten, he sprinted along the edge of the lake, the creature scrabbling after him with an unnatural speed. Its limbs made wet, slapping sounds against the stone as it gained on him. The archway seemed impossibly distant. Ren's lungs burned, his legs threatening to give out. The creature made a high-pitched chittering sound, almost like laughter. Ren glanced back and immediately wished he hadn't. The monster was only meters behind, its maw opening wider than should be possible. In that split second of distraction, his injured ankle finally betrayed him. He fell hard, skidding across the rough stone. Blood welled from scrapes on his palms and knees. The creature pounced, landing on his back with crushing weight. Claws dove into his shoulders as Ren screamed in pain and terror. In desperation, he rolled, throwing the creature off balance. Its claws tore through his shirt as he scrambled away on all fours, blood streaming down his back. He grabbed a loose rock and hurled it, striking the monster squarely in what passed for its head. It shrieked, giving Ren precious seconds to find his feet again. He half ran, half limped toward a cluster of crystal formations, ducking behind them as the creature recovered. Trapped. The realization hit him with cold certainty. The archway was still too far, his body failing him, blood loss making his vision swim. The monster would find him any moment. Ren pressed his back against the crystals, feeling their strange warmth through his torn shirt. Was this really how it would end? Alone in the dark, killed by some nightmarish dungeon creature, his body never found. All those years of enduring bullies, of being overlooked and mocked, only to die before his life had even started, before he could prove to everyone, to himself, that he mattered. "I don't want to die," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Please, I don't want to die like this." The creature's chittering grew closer. It had caught his scent in the blood trail. Ren closed his eyes, his mother's face appearing in his mind. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." The monster rounded the crystal formation, looming over him, maw opening wide. In that moment, something strange happened. The crystals at Ren's back pulsed, their blue light intensifying until it was almost blinding. A warm sensation spread through his body, beginning where the crystals touched his wounds. The air around him seemed to thicken, time slowing to a crawl. The creature hung suspended mid-lunge, close enough that Ren could count each terrible tooth in its gaping mouth. And then in a voice, not heard with his ears, but felt in his mind, resonant and ancient. "You have met the conditions. Class. Arcane Mage unlocked." A surge of energy coursed through Ren's body, warm and electric. The pain from his injuries faded as blue light pulsed beneath his skin, tracing intricate patterns along his arms. Knowledge flooded his mind, arcane formulas, magical principles, and spell configurations he somehow understood despite never having learned them. The suspended creature hung frozen before him, caught in the temporal distortion of his awakening. But Ren knew it wouldn't last. He raised his hand instinctively, palm facing the monster. Words formed on his lips, ancient and powerful. Arcane Missile. A bolt of concentrated blue energy shot from his palm, striking the creature directly in its maw. Time resumed its normal flow, and the monster was thrown backward, its chittering screech echoing through the cavern. It writhed on the ground, smoke rising from the charred hole in what passed for its face. Ren stared at his hand in disbelief. He had just cast a spell, actual magic. A translucent blue interface appeared in his field of vision, visible only to him. Class, Arcane Mage, Level 1. Mana, 2100ths. Spells known. Arcane Missile, 5 mana. Status, Wounded. Physical performance reduced by 40%. The creature struggled to its feet, limbs moving erratically. Dark fluid leaked from its wound, but it wasn't dead, and now it was angry. It charged again, faster than before. Ren cast another arcane missile and another. Each impact slowed the monster, but his mana was depleting rapidly. The third spell left him dizzy, his vision blurring at the edges. Mana, 5/100ths. Warning, low mana. The creature collapsed finally, its limbs twitching with the last sparks of life before growing still. Ren approached cautiously, heart still pounding from the adrenaline. At the center of the creature's body, where the fatal shot had pierced, a small, glowing object became visible. Monster core detected. Consumption required for class advancement. Consumption. Ren muttered, confused. He reached down and extracted the core. A crystalline sphere about the size of a marble, pulsing with the same blue energy as his spells. It was warm to the touch and seemed to respond to his proximity, glowing brighter as he examined it. The interface provided no further explanation. Ren looked from the core to the dead creature and back again, understanding slowly dawning. It couldn't possibly mean he had to eat it. That was disgusting, dangerous even. But his newfound knowledge whispered otherwise. Monster cores contained concentrated magical energy. For an arcane mage, they were the key to advancement, to power. With trembling hands, Ren brought the core to his mouth. He hesitated only briefly before swallowing it whole. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy exploded through his system, far more intense than the initial awakening. He fell to his knees, gasping as his body absorbed the core's power. His muscles spasmed, bones ached, and skin burned with an internal fire that threatened to consume him. When the sensation finally subsided, Ren felt fundamentally changed. His interface updated. Class, Arcane Mage, Level 2. Mana, 150 150ths. Spells known, Arcane Missile, 5 mana. Arcane Shield, 10 mana. Status, Core Adaptation in progress. Body reconstructing. Ren looked down at himself. His torn shirt hung looser on his frame, and his injuries had completely healed, leaving only pink scars where deep wounds had been. Experimentally, he cast Arcane Shield. A translucent blue barrier materialized around him, deflecting small debris that fell from the cavern's ceiling. "This is incredible," he whispered, examining his hands. They looked different, his fingers longer, more elegant. The shield dissipated as his concentration broke. The archway that had seemed so distant during his desperate flight now became his destination. Ren moved toward it with new confidence, noting how his body felt lighter, more responsive. His injured ankle no longer pained him. In fact, he moved with a grace he had never possessed before. Beyond the archway lay a network of tunnels, each marked with different runic symbols. Ren studied them carefully, recognizing elements from his own drawings. One set of runes pulsed faintly when he approached, a detection spell of some kind. He touched it lightly, and information blossomed in his mind. This was no ordinary dungeon. It was a testing ground, an ancient mechanism designed to identify those with magical potential and awaken their abilities. The runes told of others who had been tested here. Most had failed. But Ren had passed the first trial. Hours passed as he explored deeper, encountering more creatures. Each battle taught him to use his new abilities more effectively. He learned that Arcane Missile could be charged for greater impact at the cost of more mana. Arcane Shield could be molded into different shapes, from a full-body cocoon to a focused barrier on his arm. With each monster he defeated, he consumed another core. Each consumption brought pain, but also transformation. By his 5th core, Ren reached level 6, unlocking Arcane Explosion and Mana Siphon. The latter allowed him to drain magical energy from ambient sources, restoring his own reserves. More significant were the physical changes. His body shed fat at an accelerated rate, replacing it with lean muscle. His face structured itself differently, jawline becoming more defined, features more symmetrical. His vision sharpened until he could see clearly even in the dimmest light. During a brief rest, Ren found this still pool of water and stared at his reflection. The face looking back was almost unrecognizable. Still him, but a version of himself he'd never imagined possible. Without the excess weight, his eyes appeared larger, a startling electric blue instead of their original brown. His black hair had grown several inches, now reaching his shoulders with streaks of midnight blue that caught the light when he moved. "Is this really me?" he wondered, touching his face in disbelief. Warning: hostile entities approaching. The interface alert broke his reverie. Ren spun around, instinctively casting Arcane Shield as 3 creatures similar to the first emerged from a side tunnel. They moved in coordination, flanking him with practiced precision that suggested a higher intelligence than he'd encountered thus far. One creature launched itself at his shield while another circled behind him. The third hung back, its eyeless head tracking his movements. They were hunting him strategically. Ren smiled grimly. They were about to learn they weren't the predators anymore. He dropped his shield intentionally, allowing the first creature to lunge forward unimpeded. At the last second, he sidestepped and cast Arcane Explosion. The spell detonated, catching all 3 monsters in its radius. The closest was obliterated instantly, its core flying through the air toward Ren, who caught it reflexively. The other 2 recovered quickly, more resilient than their companion. One spat a stream of corrosive fluid that Ren barely dodged. The substance hit the stone floor, sizzling as it ate into the rock. Ren cast Mana Siphon, drawing energy from the blue crystals embedded in the walls. His mana reserves swelled beyond their normal capacity, power crackling around his hands in visible arcs. Arcane Barrage, he said, invoking a spell he hadn't known until that moment. Multiple missiles fired in rapid succession, homing in on the creatures with unerring accuracy. Their chittering screams echoed through the tunnel as the spell tore through them, leaving nothing but smoking remains and two gleaming cores. Ren collected and consumed them without hesitation. The pain was less each time, his body adapting to the process. As the energy settled, he noticed a new notification. Hidden trial complete. Defeat a monster pack. Reward, exit path revealed. A section of wall shimmered and became transparent, revealing a chamber beyond that Ren hadn't detected before. Inside was what appeared to be a teleportation circle, his way out. But as he approached the revealed passage, a deep rumbling shook the entire dungeon. Dust and small stones rained from the ceiling. Final trial initiating. Warning. Boss entity detected. The floor trembled beneath Ren's feet as something massive moved in the chamber ahead. Through the transparent barrier, he saw an enormous shadowy form uncurl itself from the darkness. 8 glowing blue eyes fixed on him as a creature the size of a small bus blocked the teleportation circle, and his only way out. The transparent barrier dissolved as Ren approached, leaving nothing between him and the massive creature guarding the exit. In the dim blue light, he could now see it clearly, an arachnid monstrosity with 8 legs ending in blade-like appendages. Its body was armored with overlapping plates that gleamed like polished obsidian, and each of its 8 eyes pulsed with the same arcane energy that now flowed through Ren's veins. Boss entity, Void Weaver, level 15. Recommendation, retreat and gain additional levels. Ren ignored the warning. There was no retreat, no other path forward. His mother was waiting for him in the world above, probably sick with worry by now. Every hour he spent in this dungeon was mere minutes outside, but she would still notice his absence. The Void Weaver chittered, the sound reverberating through the chamber like broken glass. It tapped its front legs against the stone floor, creating sparks with each impact. Then it charged. For something so large, it moved with terrifying speed. Ren barely had time to cast Arcane Shield before the creature slammed into him, the impact sending him flying across the chamber. He hit the wall hard, his shield absorbing most but not all of the damage. Health, 70%. Status, minor concussion. Ren's vision swam as he pushed himself back to his feet. The Void Weaver was already approaching for his second attack, mandibles dripping with viscous fluid that steamed where it hit the floor. Arcane Barrage, Ren gasped, directing a volley of energy bolts at the creature. The missiles struck the Weaver's armored carapace, leaving scorch marks but little actual damage. It barely slowed its advance. Ren dove aside as one bladed leg stabbed the space where he had been standing, burying itself in the stone wall. While the creature struggled to free itself, Ren frantically analyzed his options. Direct attacks weren't effective against its armor. He needed to find a weakness, a vulnerable point. The eyes, 8 glowing targets. Ren focused his mana, shaping it differently than before. Instead of a broad barrage, he concentrated the energy into a single precision strike. Arcane Lance, he called out, naming his new spell as he created it. A javelin of concentrated blue energy formed above his palm. With a gesture, he sent it flying directly at one of the Weaver's eyes. The lance struck true, penetrating the orb and driving deep into the creature's head. It screamed a high-pitched wail that made Ren's ears ring. Black ichor sprayed from the ruined eye as the Weaver thrashed in pain. Its movements became erratic, smashing into walls and pillars. The chamber shook with each impact, dust and debris raining down. Ren didn't waste the opportunity. He cast Mana Siphon, drawing power from the ambient energy of the dungeon itself. His reserves filled to bursting, threatening to overflow. Warning: mana exceeding safe levels. Recommendation: release excess energy. A plan formed in Ren's mind, reckless, dangerous, but potentially effective. He let the excess mana build, feeling it burn through his system like lightning. The pain was excruciating, but he endured it, channeling the overflow into his next spell. Arcane Nova, he whispered, naming a spell that didn't yet exist. The Void Weaver recovered from its blind rage and focused its remaining eyes on Ren. It gathered itself, preparing for another charge. Ren stood his ground, arms spread wide as blue energy engulfed him completely. They moved simultaneously, the Weaver lunging forward with blinding speed, Ren releasing all his accumulated mana in a single devastating blast. The Nova expanded outward in all directions, a perfect sphere of arcane destruction. When it touched the Void Weaver, the spell tore through its armor like paper, disintegrating the outer layers and exposing vulnerable flesh beneath. The creature's momentum carried it forward even as its body began to break apart. Ren had no strength left to dodge. The dying weaver crashed into him, its weight pinning him to the ground. One of his bladed legs pierced his shoulder, sending white-hot pain through his entire body. Health, 40%. Status, severe injury, mana depletion. Vision darkening at the edges, Ren struggled to remain conscious. The weaver's body continued to dissolve around him, revealing a pulsing core the size of a fist at the center of its mass. Unlike the smaller monster cores, this one swirled with multiple colors: blue, purple, crimson. With his remaining strength, Ren reached out and grasped the core. It burned in his hand, almost too powerful to hold. Boss core detected. Warning: core power exceeds current capacity. Consumption may result in unstable transformation. Ren hesitated only briefly before bringing the core to his mouth. If it killed him, so be it. He'd die fighting. The moment he swallowed, Ren knew he'd made either the best decision of his life or his last. Power beyond anything he'd experienced flooded his system, not merely running through his veins but rewriting them. His muscles tore and rebuilt themselves. His bones cracked and reformed, denser and stronger. Even his skin transformed, becoming something more resilient than mere flesh. The pain transcended physical understanding, becoming almost a separate entity that consumed him entirely. Ren screamed until his vocal cords shredded, then continued screaming silently as the transformation progressed. When the agony finally subsided, Ren lay motionless on the chamber floor, surrounded by the disintegrated remains of the Void Weaver. His interface had changed dramatically. Class: Arcane Mage, level 20. Evolution: first stage complete. Mana: 500/500ths. Spells known: multiple arcane disciplines unlocked. Status: transformation stabilizing. It took several minutes before Ren could stand. When he did, he felt like a stranger in his own body. He was taller by at least 4 inches, his proportions completely altered. Muscle defined every part of him, not the bulky mass of a bodybuilder, but the lean, efficient physique of a predator. He approached the teleportation circle, activating it with a touch. Blue light enveloped him, and the dungeon dissolved around him. Ren emerged, blinking in harsh sunlight. He was standing in the middle of the school's sports field. The area was cordoned off with emergency tape, and several official-looking vehicles surrounded the perimeter. Men and women in dark suits moved purposefully around equipment that beeped and whirred, monitoring the dungeon breach point. According to his internal clock, Ren had spent nearly 3 weeks inside the dungeon. But when he glanced at a digital display on one of the monitoring stations, he realized only 4 hours had passed in the outside world. A woman noticed him first, her eyes widening in shock. She reached for a communicator at her belt, never taking her gaze from Ren as she spoke rapidly into it. More people turned to stare. Ren realized how he must appear. A tall, athletic stranger with striking blue-streaked hair and glowing eyes, wearing the tattered remains of a school uniform, emerging from the exact spot where a dungeon had manifested. "It's clear," he heard someone say. "The readings are normalizing. The dungeon has collapsed." A man in a black suit approached cautiously, hand resting on what Ren suspected was a concealed weapon. Behind him, others readied strange devices that radiated energy Ren could now perceive. "Identify yourself," the man ordered. "How did you exit the dungeon?" Before Ren could answer, a familiar voice cried out from beyond the perimeter. "Ren, is that you?" His mother pushed past a security officer, ignoring his protests as she ran toward the field. She stopped abruptly about 10 meters away, her expression shifting from desperate hope to confusion as she took in his transformed appearance. "Mom," Ren said, his voice deeper than before, resonant with an undertone of power. "It's me." The suited man stepped between them, signaling to his colleagues, "Ma'am, please step back. We need to contain and examine this individual." "That's my son," she insisted, though uncertainty colored her voice as she stared at Ren. More agents approached, surrounding Ren in a loose circle. One raised a device that hummed with energy, scanning him from head to toe. The readings caused visible alarm among the agents. Power levels exceeding Category 5, the scanner operator reported. "Structure anomalous. This isn't human, sir." "I am human," Ren countered firmly. "I was trapped in the dungeon when it formed. Something happened to me inside." The lead agent drew his weapon, a specialized sidearm designed for dungeon threats. Others followed suit, their expressions grim. "What are you?" the agent demanded, aiming directly at Ren's head. Ren felt calm despite the weapons pointed at him. He could sense the energy in each gun and could calculate exactly how much power it would take to neutralize them all. But that wasn't the path he chose. Instead, he slowly raised his hands, palms open in a gesture of peace. His eyes, glowing with arcane power, met the agents squarely. "My name is Ren Kizareji," he said clearly, projecting his voice so everyone could hear. "And I think I'm the first mage this world has seen in a very long time." The interrogation room was sparse, a metal table, 2 chairs, and walls lined with some material Ren could sense was designed to dampen energy signatures. For the past 3 hours, a rotating cast of officials had questioned him about his experience in the dungeon. His mother waited outside, allowed only brief contact under supervision. "Tell me again about this class awakening," said the latest interrogator, a stern woman with close-cropped gray hair who had introduced herself only as Director Katsumi. Ren repeated his story, carefully omitting details about consuming monster cores. Something instinctual told him to keep that information private. He described the arcane energy, the interface only he could see, and the transformation of his body. The truth, but not the whole truth. Director Katsumi tapped her tablet, reviewing data. "Your biometric scans show extensive cellular modification. Your DNA structure has been altered, though it remains fundamentally human." "I told you I'm still me," Ren said. "Just changed." Indeed. She looked up, studying him with clinical detachment. The Dungeon Bureau has documented similar phenomena in rare cases. Individuals who develop abilities after dungeon exposure. We call them awakened, but your case is unprecedented in both degree and nature. She placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic image of Ren's body, overlaid with swirling patterns of blue energy. "This is your current energy signature," she explained. "Most awakened manifest physical enhancements, increased strength, accelerated healing, heightened senses. Purely internal, your energy actively interacts with external environments. You generate, manipulate, and absorb ambient energy. In old terms, you perform magic." Ren nodded, unsurprised. "What happens to me now?" "That depends." Director Katsumi leaned forward. "The standard procedure for Awakened is registration, training, and integration into the Hunter system. You'll be evaluated, ranked, and assigned appropriate duties. And if I refuse?" Her expression hardened. "That option isn't available, Mr. Kisaragi. Unregistered Awakened pose potential public safety risks. Cooperation is mandatory." Ren felt a flicker of anger, but suppressed it. He was no longer the powerless boy who entered that dungeon, but fighting the government would only make his situation worse. "I understand," he said finally. "What does registration involve?" The process began the next morning. Ren was transferred to the Tokyo Dungeon Bureau headquarters, an imposing glass and steel complex in the heart of the city. His mother was allowed to accompany him, though she remained largely silent, still processing the transformation of her son. "We'll conduct a series of tests to measure your abilities," explained Technician Mori, a young man who seemed genuinely fascinated by Ren's condition. "Then you'll take the standard Hunter certification exam, modified to accommodate your unique skills." The testing facility resembled a high-tech gymnasium. Various stations measured different aspects of Ren's abilities: strength, speed, reflexes, energy output, and control. Scientists observed from behind reinforced glass, making notes and adjustments to their equipment as Ren repeatedly exceeded their parameters. "Remarkable," Mori muttered as Ren shattered another measurement device. "Your physical stats alone would qualify you as B rank, but your energy manipulation capabilities are off the charts." After physical testing came practical application. Ren was guided to a simulation chamber where holographic monsters appeared, varying in size and threat level. He dispatched them easily, using a fraction of his power. The scientists seemed both impressed and disturbed by the display. During a brief break, Ren overheard two technicians speaking. "Impossible to classify conventionally," one said. "His energy signature doesn't match any known awakened type." "Director wants him registered as E rank," replied the other, keeping him under the radar until they understand what they're dealing with. Ren pretended not to hear, but internally his mind raced. They were deliberately underclassifying him, hiding his true potential. But why? The answer came during his final evaluation with Director Katsumi. "Congratulations, Mr. Kisaragi. You successfully completed the Hunter certification process," she said, sliding a tablet toward him with his registration information. Ren stared at the document in disbelief. Name Ren Kisaragi. Classification: Awakened. Rank E. Class: Unranked. Assignment: Provisional Hunter. Tokyo East District. E rank. Ren questioned, knowing full well he performed at a far higher level. Director Katsumi's expression remained impassive. "Your case presents unique challenges. Until we fully understand your abilities, a conservative approach is prudent." "You mean until you figure out if I'm a threat?" Ren translated. A thin smile appeared on her lips. Perceptive. "Yes, Mr. Kisaragi, we are proceeding with caution. You'll be given appropriate missions for your official rank while we continue to study your development. This arrangement protects both you and the public." "Protects me." "Think, Mr. Kisaragi. What would happen if word spread about a teenage boy with unprecedented powers? Every guild would attempt to recruit or eliminate you. Foreign interests would take notice. You would become a target before you've even learned to control your abilities fully." Ren considered this. She wasn't wrong. "And my mother?" will be relocated to secure housing near the Bureau complex. Her safety is assured provided you cooperate. It wasn't a request, but a tacit threat. Ren nodded slowly. When do I start? 2 days later, Ren stood among 20 other newly certified hunters in a briefing room. Most were older than him, in their 20s or 30s, with the hardened look of experienced fighters. Their equipment varied. Some carried traditional weapons like swords or spears. Others wore specialized gear integrated with technology. All were registered as E rank, the entry level for hunters. "Welcome to the newest cohort of Tokyo District Hunters," announced the instructor, a scarred man with a cybernetic arm. "Look around you. Statistically, only half of you will survive your first year." E rank has the highest casualty rate of any classification. Murmurs spread through the group. Ren remained silent, observing. "Today you'll participate in your first supervised dungeon raid," the instructor continued. "A stable E-rank dungeon has been secured for training purposes. You'll be divided into teams of 4. Each team will be assigned a mission-specific objective." As the instructor began calling out team assignments, a young man with dyed blonde hair approached Ren, sizing him up with obvious skepticism. "You're the high school kid, right? The one they found coming out of Shinmai High's dungeon?" He extended a hand. "Kaito Shimada, C-rank applicant, slumming with the newbies for fast-track certification." Ren froze, instantly recognizing his former bully. Kaito didn't seem to recognize him. The transformation had been too complete. For a moment, Ren considered revealing his identity, watching the shock spread across Kaito's face. Instead, he shook the offer hand. "Ren, E-rank." Kaito laughed. "Must have been terrifying, trapped in there without training. Lucky to make it out alive, let alone with certification." Before Ren could respond, the instructor called out their names. Team 3, Shimada, Kisaragi, Tanaka, Wong. Objective: Monster Sample Collection, Central Chamber. Kaito grinned. "Looks like we're teammates. Stick close to me if you want to live through this, schoolboy." Ren smiled thinly. "I'll do my best to keep up." Their team was outfitted with standard equipment, communication devices, emergency beacons, and basic weapons. The others checked their gear with practiced efficiency. Ren carried nothing but a bureau-issued uniform, form-fitting and reinforced to withstand minor damage. As they approached the dungeon entrance, a stabilized portal maintained by Bureau technology, Kaito nudged Ren. "Seriously, kid, this isn't a game. E-rank dungeons may be the weakest classification, but they still kill people. What's your skill set anyway?" Ren met his gaze, a faint blue glow flickering briefly in his eyes. "Let's just say I'm good at solving problems." The portal activated, swirling with energy that Ren could now perceive as crude and inefficient compared to the natural formations. The team stepped forward into the unknown, Ren hiding a smile as he felt the familiar sensation of crossing between worlds. If they only knew what walked among them. The E-rank dungeon wasn't what Ren expected. After his experience in the hidden-type dungeon, this felt artificial and constrained, like comparing a wild forest to a carefully maintained park. Still, he maintained his facade of novice nervousness as Team 3 moved through the stone corridors. Standard formation, Kaito ordered, naturally assuming leadership. Wong on point with detection, Tanaka rear guard, Kisaragi center with me. The team members nodded, falling into position without question. Mina Wong, a petite woman with an array of technological sensors built into her gloves, took the lead. Daichi Tanaka, a burly man carrying a heavy shield nearly as tall as himself, guarded their backs. "Stay alert, rookie," Kaito said to Ren. These corridors seem quiet, but E-ranks often have ambush-type monsters. Ren feigned attentiveness while secretly mapping the dungeon's energy flows in his mind. His arcane senses detected monsters long before Wong's tech could, 3 small clusters ahead and a larger concentration in what must be the central chamber. "So Kisaragi," Kaito continued as they walked, "what's your story? Most E-ranks come from the military or sports backgrounds. You look like you just walked out of a fashion magazine." The irony wasn't lost on Ren. Before the dungeon, he'd been the last person anyone would associate with fashion. "Just lucky, I guess," Ren answered vaguely. Kaito snorted. "Luck doesn't keep you alive in dungeons. Skill and experience do." He tapped the hilt of his sword. 3 years of combat training and 2 as a hunter applicant to reach C-rank qualification. "What's your specialty?" Before Ren could answer, Wong raised her hand, signaling a halt. Movement ahead. 3 signatures, small to medium size. "Perfect for sample collection," Kaito grinned. "Tanaka, barrier position." Wong, identify. Kisaragi, stay back and observe. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Tanaka stepped forward, shield creating a wall of protection. Wong consulted her scanner, projecting a holographic image of the creatures, rat-like beings with overlarge incisors and barbed tails. "Spine rats," she reported, E-rank vermin. Minimal threat individually, dangerous in swarms. Venomous barbs in the tail. Kaido pulled out a long knife different from his sword. Bureau wants samples of the venom sacs. Clean extraction required. He glanced at Ren. Watch and learn, rookie. The team advanced into a wider chamber where the creatures scurried among fallen debris. Tanaka stamped his foot, drawing the rat's attention while Wong fired a stun net from her wrist device. It enveloped one rat, immobilizing it with electrical pulses. Kaido moved with surprising speed, pinning the stunned creature and expertly cutting into its tail with surgical precision. He extracted a small gland, placing it in a collection vial. 1 down, 5 to go, he announced. The process repeated twice more without incident, the team working methodically. Ren maintained his position, appearing to study their technique while actually monitoring the dungeon's energy patterns. Something was changing. The larger concentration in the central chamber had begun to move. We should hurry, Ren suggested. The dungeon feels different. Kaido looked up from his work with annoyance. Feels different? What are you, psychic? Wong's sensors would detect any significant changes. As if on cue, Wong frowned at her readings. Actually, there is something odd. Energy fluctuations in the central chamber. Might be nothing, but a deep rumble interrupted her, the floor vibrating beneath their feet. Dust fell from the ceiling as the tremors intensified. Dungeon shift, Tanaka growled. Layout changing. Ren had read about this. Some dungeons periodically reconfigured themselves, especially when awakened entities detected intruders. The E-rank classification suddenly seemed questionable. Bureau briefing didn't mention structural instability. Kaido said, his cockiness replaced by concern. New plan, we grab one more sample and head for extraction point Alpha. The walls began to crack as the tremors increased. What happened next unfolded in seconds. A fissure opened beneath Wong's feet and she disappeared with a startled cry. Tanaka lunged to grab her but missed, nearly falling himself. Wong! Kaido shouted, rushing to the edge of the newly formed pit. His light revealed only darkness below. Wong's voice crackled through their communication devices. I'm alive. Some kind of lower chamber. Not alone down here. Multiple signatures approaching. Panic flashed across Kaido's face before he composed himself. Maintain position. We'll find a way down. Negative, Wong replied, her voice tight with tension. Too many of them. Extraction not possible. Activating emergency beacon. Protocol is clear, team leader. Wong responded calmly. Breach contained at all costs. It's been an honor. Ren made his decision instantly. Without a word, he dove into the pit, ignoring Kaido's shocked shout. The fall was longer than expected, but Ren controlled his descent with a cushion of arcane energy invisible to any observers. He landed in a vast cavern, spotting Wong backed against a wall. Surrounding her were dozens of creatures, not spine rats, but humanoid figures with translucent skin that revealed pulsing organs beneath. Their elongated limbs ended in razor-sharp bone protrusions. These were no E-rank monsters. Wong stared at Ren in disbelief, her finger hovering over the emergency beacon trigger. Kisaragi, are you insane? These are C-rank hollow men. Ren approached calmly, positioning himself between Wong and the advancing creatures. Deactivate the beacon. We're leaving together. Impossible, she insisted. Bureau protocol. Forget protocol, Ren interrupted. He turned to face the hollow men who had paused their advance, seemingly curious about the newcomer. Trust me. Before Wong could protest further, Ren raised his hand slightly. A pulse of invisible energy rippled outward, subtle enough that Wong wouldn't notice but powerful enough that the creatures recoiled. They recognized a predator when they saw one. What are you doing? Wong whispered. Creating a path, Ren replied quietly. When I move, stay right behind me. Don't run. Don't panic. Walk steadily. Ren began walking directly toward the massive creatures, projecting an aura of controlled power. The hollow men parted before him, hissing and swaying but not attacking. Wong followed, her disbelief evident in her shaking breaths. They had nearly reached the other side of the cavern when Kaido and Tanaka rappelled down from above, weapons drawn. The sudden noise startled the creatures, breaking the fragile standoff. Defensive formation, Kaido shouted, slashing the nearest hollow man. Chaos erupted. The creatures surged forward from all sides. Tanaka raised his shield, blocking several attacks while Kaido fought with surprising skill. But they were hopelessly outnumbered. Wong deployed her remaining stun nets, buying seconds at most. The beacon is our only option. Ren realized he had no choice. Maintaining his cover meant certain death for all of them. In one fluid motion, he pushed Wong behind him and raised both hands. Shield your eyes, he commanded. Before anyone could respond, Ren released a controlled burst of arcane energy. A modified arcane nova concentrated into a wave that swept through the cavern. The light was blinding, the force thunderous. When visibility returned, every hollow man lay motionless on the ground, their bodies disintegrating into dust. Kaido, Tanaka, and Wong stared at Ren in stunned silence. What the hell was that? Kaido finally managed. Ren kept his expression neutral. E-rank standard issue stun grenade. Much stronger than I expected. It was a weak explanation, and Ren could see the others didn't believe it. But survival overrode curiosity for the moment. Let's get out of here, Tanaka suggested, eyeing Ren with new wariness. They climbed back to the upper level using Tanaka's repelling equipment and made their way to the extraction point in silence. Just before they reached the portal, Kaido pulled Ren aside. That wasn't a stun grenade, he said quietly. I don't know what you are, but you're no E-rank. Ren met his gaze evenly. We've all got our secrets, Kaido. Back at the Bureau, Team 3 reported the anomalous C-rank monsters in what was supposed to be an E-rank dungeon. Their mission was registered as a qualified success despite the unexpected complications. Wong gave Ren curious glances but said nothing about what had happened in the cavern. As they exited the debriefing, a tall woman in an immaculate business suit approached. Her bureau identification tagged her as Guild Liaison Officer Sakura. Impressive first mission, Mr. Kizuragi, she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. Particularly your quick thinking during the cavern incident. Ren tensed. The team worked well together. Indeed, she handed him a sleek black card. Guild Polaris would like to extend an invitation for evaluation. We're always looking for promising talents. Kaido, overhearing, looked shocked. Polaris? They only recruit B rank and above. Sakura's smile widened fractionally. Exceptions are occasionally made for exceptional candidates. As she walked away, Ren examined the card. Guild Polaris, the most powerful hunter organization in Asia. Their influence extended beyond dungeons into politics and global security. You're full of surprises, Kizuragi, Kaido muttered. What are you hiding? Ren pocketed the card, aware that Bureau surveillance was likely capturing every word. Just another E-rank trying to survive like everyone else. But in the building's security center, the surveillance operator frowned at his screen, rewinding the footage from the dungeon's hidden cameras. He zoomed in on the cavern incident, enhancing the image of Ren's hands just before the flash. Director, he called. You need to see this. Guild Polaris headquarters dominated the Tokyo skyline. Towering spire of glass and steel that caught the morning light, transforming it into a beacon visible from miles away. Ren stood at its base, the black invitation card heavy in his hand. After 3 days of consideration, he had decided to at least hear what they had to offer. The lobby exceeded even the exterior's opulence. Marble floors reflected the massive crystal chandelier overhead. Hunters of various ranks moved through the space with purpose, their equipment and bearing indicating years of experience and countless successful missions. Mr. Kizuragi, a voice called. The guild liaison, Sakura, approached with the same perfect posture and calculating smile she had worn at the bureau. We're pleased you accepted our invitation. Ren nodded politely. I was curious. Curiosity is a valuable trait in our line of work. She gestured toward a private elevator. The guild master is eager to meet you. This surprised Ren. Guild masters rarely bothered with E-rank recruits, even exceptional ones. His suspicion deepened. The elevator ascended smoothly, floor numbers ticking upward until they passed the highest displayed digit and continued into unmarked territory. Where the doors finally opened, they revealed a penthouse office with panoramic views of Tokyo. Standing at the window was a man whose presence commanded attention without effort. Ren Kizuragi, he said without turning. The boy who survived a hidden-type dungeon. I am Ichiro Nakamura, master of Guild Polaris. Ren recognized the name immediately. Nakamura was a legend, reportedly the first S-rank hunter in Japan, a pioneer who had established the guild system when dungeons first appeared. His policies shaped how the world responded to the dungeon crisis. It's an honor, Ren said, meaning it despite his reservations. Nakamura turned, revealing a face younger than Ren expected, perhaps 40 with only threads of silver in his dark hair. His eyes, however, spoke of much greater age and experience. Please sit. Nakamura gestured to a seating area where tea had been prepared. Sakura remained by the elevator, silent and watchful. As they settled, Nakamura studied Ren with unnerving intensity. I'll be direct, Mr. Kizuragi. Your official classification as E-rank is a fiction, isn't it? Ren maintained a neutral expression. The Bureau assigned my rank based on their evaluation. Indeed. Nakamura smiled thinly. The Bureau has its reasons for such classifications. Protection, perhaps, or containment. He sipped his tea. But we both know what you did in that cavern. What you are capable of. Ren tensed. The surveillance footage must have been clearer than he thought. I'm not sure what you mean. No. Nakamura set down his cup. Let me be clearer. Arcane energy manipulation. Spellcasting. Abilities not seen since before dungeons appeared. The Bureau calls you unranked because they have no classification for what you represent. The directness caught Ren off guard. He had expected subtle probing, not open acknowledgement of his abilities. "What do you want from me?" Ren asked. "To offer you a place where your gifts will be valued rather than feared. The Bureau sees you as a potential threat to be monitored and controlled. Guild Polaris sees potential, period." Nakamura leaned forward. "Join us, and we'll provide resources, training, and protection from those who would exploit or eliminate you." Eliminate. Surely you understand the precariousness of your position. An unprecedented awaken with powers that defy categorization. Some would view your existence as destabilizing to the carefully balanced system we've constructed. The implied threat was clear. Nakamura continued smoothly. "As a Polaris hunter, you would have autonomy to develop your abilities under our guidance. Your official rank would remain E for now, but your actual assignments would match your true capabilities. And in return, loyalty, discretion, and occasional participation in special projects that require your unique talents." Ren considered the offer. On the surface, it seemed advantageous: freedom to grow without Bureau constraints, protection from potential threats, proper utilization of his abilities. Yet something felt wrong. Nakamura's interests seemed too convenient, his knowledge too specific. "This is a significant decision," Ren said carefully. "I'd like time to consider it." Nakamura's expression cooled slightly. "Of course. But opportunity, like time, waits for no one, Mr. Kisaragi. Other guilds will soon notice your potential, if they haven't already." As they stood, Nakamura added, "A demonstration of our good faith." He handed Ren a data tablet. "Your next Bureau assignment. A solo mapping mission to an E-rank dungeon at the edge of Tokyo. Simple, but unnecessarily dangerous for someone of your talents." Ren accepted the tablet, confused. "How did you get this information?" "Assignments aren't released until tomorrow." Nakamura merely smiled. "Guild Polaris has resources beyond what you might imagine. Consider my offer, Ren. Sakura will see you out." In the elevator, Sakura broke her silence. "The Guildmaster rarely takes such personal interest in recruitment. You should feel honored." "I do," Ren replied, though his mind was racing with questions. How had Nakamura known about his abilities? How had he obtained classified Bureau information? What were these special projects he mentioned? As Ren exited the building, a nagging sense of wrongness persisted. He activated the tablet, reviewing the mission details. A standard E-rank exploration, just as Nakamura had said. Yet something about having this information in advance felt like being maneuvered into position on a chessboard. That evening, Ren visited his mother in the Bureau-provided housing. The apartment was comfortable but sterile, lacking the warmth of their old home. Security cameras monitored the entrance and common areas. For protection, the Bureau claimed. "How are you adjusting?" his mother asked as they ate dinner together. Fine, Ren answered automatically, then reconsidered. If anyone deserved his honesty, it was her. "Actually, it's complicated. A major guild approached me today." Her chopsticks paused midair. "Is that good?" "I'm not sure." Ren described the meeting, omitting classified details but conveying his unease. His mother studied him thoughtfully. Even after weeks, she was still adjusting to his transformed appearance. "Trust your instincts, Ren. You've always had good judgment even when you didn't believe in yourself. What would you do?" She smiled sadly. "I'm hardly qualified to advise on dungeon politics. But I know one thing. True allies don't pressure you with veiled threats." The next morning, Ren reported to the Bureau for his assignment. As Nakamura had predicted, he received orders for a solo mapping mission to an E-rank dungeon. The coincidence confirmed his suspicions about Guild Polaris having inside access to Bureau operations. Instead of accepting the mission immediately, Ren requested a meeting with Director Katsuni. After a brief wait, he was escorted to her office. "This is unexpected, Mr. Kisaragi," she said, not looking up from her work. "Is there a problem with your assignment?" "I was approached by Guild Polaris yesterday," Ren stated directly. Guildmaster Nakamura knew about this mission before it was assigned. This got her attention. She looked up sharply, her expression hardening. "Explain." Ren recounted the meeting and showed her the tablet Nakamura had provided. Director Katsuni examined it, her composure cracking slightly. "This information is classified," she said, voice tight with controlled anger. "Nakamura's influence is concerning but not surprising. Did you accept his offer?" "No." Something felt wrong about the whole situation. Director Katsumi studied him with new interest. "Your instincts serve you well. Guild Polaris has been investigating Awaken with unusual abilities for years. Their methods and motives remain unclear, but we've documented several cases of particularly gifted individuals disappearing after guild recruitment. Disappearing. Officially transferred to specialized training facilities. Unofficially never seen again. She handed the tablet back to Ren. Your assignment is cancelled. Report to Training Facility 3 tomorrow morning instead. As Ren left the Bureau headquarters, he noticed a sleek black car parked across the street. Through the tinted window, he glimpsed Sakura watching him. Their eyes met briefly before the car pulled away. That night, Ren couldn't sleep. His instincts had saved him from whatever Polaris had planned, but he'd also made a powerful enemy. If the Bureau's protection came with constraints, Polaris' enmity brought active danger. After hours of restless thought, Ren reached a decision. He would forge his own path, neither Bureau puppet nor guild asset. He would develop his abilities his way, undertaking missions that suited his capabilities while maintaining the facade of an unremarkable E rank. As dawn approached, Ren slipped out of his Bureau housing, careful to avoid the security cameras. He found a secluded park several blocks away and began practicing his arcane skills in earnest for the first time since leaving the dungeon. Energy flowed through him like liquid fire, responding to his will with increasing precision. When the sun rose, casting long shadows across the empty park, Ren had mastered 3 new spell variations and discovered something unexpected. He could sense nearby dungeons, feeling their energy signatures like distant heartbeats. One such pulse drew his attention eastward. Not a Bureau-registered dungeon, but something new, something hidden. The perfect opportunity to test his growing powers away from prying eyes. As Ren headed back to his housing, he failed to notice the small drone hovering high above the park, its camera focused on his training session. In a darkened room miles away, Nakamura watched the footage with growing interest. Fascinating, he murmured. Proceed with Operation Shadow. If he won't join willingly, we'll simply have to create circumstances where he has no choice. Raindrops pelted the abandoned warehouse district at the edge of Tokyo Bay. Ren moved silently between dilapidated buildings, homing in on the energy signature he'd been tracking for days. The unregistered dungeon pulsed like a beacon to his arcane senses, invisible to conventional detection methods but unmistakable to him. 2 weeks had passed since his encounter with Guild Polaris. During that time, Ren had completed several Bureau assignments, all standard E-rank missions designed to build his official record while keeping him firmly categorized as unremarkable. In his spare time, he developed his abilities in secret, away from surveillance. Tamag was different. The Bureau's monitoring systems showed him safely in his assigned housing thanks to a cleverly programmed loop in the security feed. His mother believed he was on an overnight training exercise. No one knew where he really was or what he planned to do. Clear a dungeon solo, proved to himself what he was truly capable of. The warehouse ahead emanated the telltale distortion of a dungeon entrance, subtle enough that even trained hunters might miss it. Ren approached cautiously, scanning for any sign of Bureau or guild presence. Finding none, he slipped through a broken window. Inside, reality warped around a jagged tier in space, a natural dungeon entrance, unlike the stabilized portals used in official missions. Ren activated his interface, assessing the dungeon's properties. Dungeon detected, shifting labyrinth, estimated rank C. Warning, unstable formation. Recommendation, full hunter team required. Ren ignored the warning. C-rank dungeons typically required at least 4 experienced hunters working together. For most, attempting a solo clear would be suicide, but Ren was no ordinary hunter. He stepped through the entrance, feeling the familiar sensation of crossing between worlds. The warehouse vanished, replaced by a vast chamber of polished black stone. Unlike previous dungeons, this one felt almost ceremonial, with towering columns and walls inscribed with runes similar to those in his first dungeon. Location, Outer Sanctum. Hostiles detected, none. Ambient energy, high. Ren moved forward, absorbing the ambient magical energy to replenish his reserves. His training had taught him to be efficient, conserving power until necessary. The dungeon remained eerily silent as he navigated its initial chambers, mapping the layout in his mind. In a 4th chamber, he encountered his first opponents, humanoid figures formed from writhing shadows, their eyes glowing crimson. They moved with unnatural fluidity, surrounding him in seconds. Hostiles identified. Shadow Weavers, C rank. Threat assessment, moderate. Weaknesses, radiant energy. Ren raised his hand, summoning a spell he developed during his private training. Arcane Illumination. Light erupted from his palm, not as a weapon, but as pure, concentrated radiance. The Shadow Weavers shrieked, their forms disintegrating in the brilliance. Within moments, only 7 glowing cores remained on the chamber floor. Ren collected them efficiently, consuming 2 to restore his spent energy and storing the others in a specialized pouch. Each core strengthened him incrementally, his body now adapted to absorb their power without the violent transformation of his first experience. As he progressed deeper, the dungeon's difficulty increased proportionally. Traps lined the corridors, pressure plates triggering dart mechanisms, false floors concealing spiked pits, tripwires releasing poisonous gas. Ren navigated them with preternatural awareness, his arcane senses detecting the magical triggers before conventional means would reveal them. In the central chamber, he found something unexpected, a throne carved from obsidian, upon which sat a figure wearing ornate armor. It appeared motionless until Ren approached, then rose with mechanical precision. Boss entity detected. Shadow Knight, B rank. Threat assessment, high. Recommendation, tactical retreat. The Shadow Knight drew a sword that absorbed light rather than reflected it, the blade seemingly formed from compressed darkness. Its voice resonated from within its helm, hollow and ancient. Mortal, you trespass in sacred ground. Your punishment is death. Ren didn't bother responding. He'd learned that dungeon entities rarely engaged in meaningful dialogue. Instead, he assessed his opponent methodically. The armor would deflect conventional attacks, and its sword likely carried deadly enchantments. Direct confrontation would be wasteful. The knight charged, moving faster than its bulky appearance suggested possible. Ren sidestepped, casting arcane shield just as the black blade slashed through the space he'd occupied. The impact against his shield sent vibrations through his arm, the weapon's power surprising him. This would not be an easy victory. For several minutes, they engaged in a deadly dance, the knight attacking with increasing ferocity, Ren defending and counterattacking with calculated precision. His spells seemed to have minimal effect on the armored figure, energy dissipating against its protective enchantments. Ren needed a new approach. As he evaded another powerful strike, he noticed something crucial. The floor beneath the knight momentarily distorted with each step, as if struggling to support its concentrated energy. An idea formed. Instead of targeting the knight directly, Ren focused on the ground beneath it. He channeled mana into the floor, weakening its structural integrity while seeming to continue their direct battle. When the moment was right, Ren cast Arcane Explosion, not at the knight, but at the compromised floor. The stone shattered, creating a sinkhole that caught the knight off balance. As it struggled to maintain footing, Ren unleashed his full power in a concentrated arcane lance that pierced the gap in the knight's armor at the neck joint. The knight froze, dark energy leaking from the wound like smoke. It regarded Ren with what might have been respect before collapsing, armor clattering against the broken stone. At its center lay not a conventional core, but a pulsing crystalline object the size of Ren's fist. Rare item detected, Dungeon Heart Fragment. Warning, unknown properties. Recommendation, secure containment. Ren approached cautiously, sensing immense power within the fragment. Unlike monster cores, this contained structured information, knowledge rather than raw energy. As his fingers closed around it, images flooded his mind. Another world, vast landscapes unlike Earth. Creatures of immense power moving through a realm where magic was the primary force rather than a rare phenomenon. Then darkness, fracturing, invasion. The fragment spoke directly into his mind, its voice neither male nor female, but ancient beyond measure. At last, the Chosen awakens, the first in an age. Ren nearly dropped the fragment in shock. What are you? A remnant? A messenger? A key? The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. You have been marked since before your birth, Ren Kisaragi. The dungeons did not choose you by chance. Questions raced through Ren's mind, but before he could voice them, a disturbance rippled through the chamber. The dungeon was becoming unstable, the walls trembling as reality reasserted itself. We will speak again, the fragment promised. Keep me close. Trust no guild, no bureau. Forces beyond your world move against you now. The dungeon began collapsing around him. Ren pocketed the fragment and ran, navigating the disintegrating corridors from memory. Chambers that had taken hours to clear now blurred past in minutes as he raced against the dungeon's collapse. He burst through the entrance just as it sealed behind him, finding himself back in the abandoned warehouse. Dawn light filtered through broken windows, indicating he'd spent the entire night inside. His interface updated with a notification he'd never seen before. Achievement: Solo C-Rank Dungeon Clear. Reward: Class Evolution Progress 45%. Warning: Unauthorized dungeon activity detected. The last alert concerned him. Somehow, his unsanctioned mission had been flagged in the system. Whether bureau or guilds, someone now knew what he'd done. Ren made his way quickly back toward the city, the dungeon heart fragment a reassuring weight in his pocket. Whatever it was, whatever it knew, it had called him Chosen. After a lifetime of being overlooked and underestimated, the recognition resonated deeply. As he neared the residential district, Ren spotted a familiar black car parked near the transit station. Standing beside it was Sakura, her expression unreadable as she watched him approach. Impressive work, Kisaragi, she called. Most hunters wouldn't survive 10 minutes in that dungeon, let alone clear it solo. Ren tensed, prepared for conflict. You are watching me. Guild Polaris keeps track of potential assets. Her gaze dropped to his pocket where the fragment rested. Especially those who find such interesting artifacts. "The fragment is mine," Ren stated firmly, "by hunter rights and dungeon law." Sakura smiled thinly. "Of course, Heal Polaris respects ownership. We merely offer resources to help you understand what you found." She opened the car door. "The offer to join us remains open." When Ren didn't move, she added, "Consider your position carefully. The Bureau will not look kindly on unauthorized dungeon diving, particularly when you've concealed your true abilities. Guild protection could become necessary rather than optional. Is that a threat?" "A reality check. You're playing a game whose rules you don't fully understand." She handed him a new card. "When you're ready to talk, call this number." As the car drove away, Ren felt the fragment pulse warmly in his pocket as if responding to his agitation. Whatever game was being played, whatever forces were moving against him, one thing was certain: he was no longer just an E-rank hunter trying to survive. He was a player with his own power, his own agenda. And according to the fragment, he was the chosen. The dungeon heart fragment pulsed with gentle blue light as Ren placed it on his small apartment desk. 3 days had passed since his solo dungeon clear, and the Bureau had yet to contact him about the unauthorized expedition. Either their detection systems weren't as comprehensive as they claimed, or someone was deliberately ignoring the infraction. Neither possibility was comforting. Ren had spent every free moment studying the fragment, learning to attune his consciousness to its alien rhythms. The process was taxing. Each connection left him mentally exhausted and physically drained. But the knowledge gained was worth the cost. "Show me again," he whispered, placing his palm against the crystalline surface. The world around him dissolved, replaced by visions of another realm. The Abyss, that was its name. A world parallel to Earth, separated by barriers that had remained inviolate for millennia. Until now. The fragment's consciousness guided him through landscapes of impossible beauty and terrifying power. Floating islands drifted through skies of perpetual twilight. Creatures of pure magical energy roamed vast plains. Cities of crystal and living stone housed beings that defied conventional biology. "Why are dungeons appearing on Earth?" Ren asked, his voice echoing strangely in the mental space they shared. "The barriers weaken," the fragment responded. "What was once impossible becomes inevitable. The Abyss seeks equilibrium with your realm. These creatures, these monsters we fight in dungeons, they're from the Abyss. Scouts, explorers, the vanguard of what is to come." Images shifted to show massive entities unlike anything Ren had encountered in dungeons, beings of such power that their mere presence warped reality around them. Dungeon generals, the fragment named them. Command units preparing for larger forces. "Is this an invasion?" Ren asked, alarmed by the implications. "Perspective determines definition. From Earth's view, perhaps. From the Abyss, it is reclamation." Before Ren could question further, a sharp knocking at his door broke the connection. The visions vanished, leaving him disoriented and drenched in cold sweat. He quickly concealed the fragment in a specially warded container he created from materials imbued with his own magic. At the door stood Kaido, now wearing the formal uniform of a Bureau Tactical Response officer. His expression was all business. "Kisaragi, Director Katsune wants to see you immediately." Ren maintained a neutral expression despite his surprise. "What's this about?" "Above my clearance," Kaido replied stiffly. "Transport is waiting." The ride to Bureau headquarters was tense and silent. Kaido had been openly hostile since their dungeon mission together, clearly suspicious of Ren's abilities but lacking concrete evidence to support his suspicions. Director Katsumi's office was unusually crowded when they arrived. Several high-ranking Bureau officials stood around a holographic display showing energy readings and geographical data. They fell silent as Ren entered. "Mr. Kisaragi," Director Katsumi greeted him, her tone carefully controlled. "Thank you for coming promptly. We have a situation that may require your particular expertise." Ren noted the emphasis on particular with concern. Had they discovered his unauthorized dungeon clear after all? "How can I help?" he asked cautiously. Katsumi gestures the hologram. 3 days ago, our monitoring stations detected an unusual energy spike in an abandoned warehouse district. Analysis confirms it was a natural dungeon manifestation not previously registered in our systems. The anomaly, continued another official Ren didn't recognize, is that the dungeon collapsed completely within hours of forming. Dungeons typically stabilize for weeks or months before dissolution. Katsumi's gaze fixed on Ren. More interesting is that our sensors detected a single human energy signature entering and exiting during this period. Would you know anything about this, Mr. Kisaragi? The question hung in the air. Denial would be pointless. They clearly had enough evidence to place him at the scene. But admitting to unauthorized dungeon activity would trigger severe penalties. Ren chose a middle path. "I sensed an unregistered dungeon formation during my off-duty hours and investigated. When it proved unstable, I reported the coordinates to the automated Bureau system. That you entered without authorization or backup," Katsui noted. "A violation of multiple protocols." The situation seemed time-sensitive. The dungeon was collapsing. One of the other officials leaned forward. Our scans indicate you remained inside for over 6 hours. That suggests more than mere reconnaissance. Ren maintained his composure. The interior was temporarily distorted, as many dungeons are. What felt like minutes to me may have registered differently outside. Katsumi studied him for a long moment before sighing. Under normal circumstances, this would result in immediate suspension of your hunter status. However, circumstances are not normal. She adjusted the holographic display to show a new set of readings. Following the dungeon collapse, we detected significant changes in global dungeon activity. Formation rates have increased 30%. Energy signatures are showing harmonic resonance patterns never before recorded. Something changed when that warehouse dungeon collapsed, the unnamed official added. We need to know what you encountered inside. Ren carefully considered his response. The fragment had warned him to trust neither bureau nor guild. A complete non-cooperation would only intensify their suspicions. I encountered standard C-rank entities, he said eventually. The dungeon's structure was unusual, ceremonial, almost. When I reached the central chamber, the collapse began. I barely escaped. Not a lie, but far from the complete truth. Katsumi didn't appear fully convinced, but nodded. Very well. Given your unique sensory capabilities, we're temporarily reassigning you to anomaly investigation. You'll work directly under my authority, identifying and reporting unusual dungeon formations. The Bureau recognizes that conventional detection methods are proving inadequate, she continued. Your intuitive ability to locate dungeons could prove invaluable as we face this escalating crisis. The reassignment was unexpected. Anomaly investigation was typically reserved for B-rank hunters and above. Either they valued his abilities more than they admitted, or they wanted to keep him under closer observation. Probably both. I'll do my best, Ren agreed, seeing little choice. After receiving his new credentials and assignment details, Ren was dismissed. As he left the building, he noticed Kaido watching him with undisguised resentment. The promotion, however qualified, had clearly aggravated existing tensions. That evening, Ren returned to his private connection with the dungeon heart fragment, seeking answers to questions the Bureau had inadvertently raised. The dungeons are increasing in frequency, he told the fragment. What does it mean? Progression follows its natural course, the fragment replied cryptically. The first phase nears completion. What happens when it completes? The mental landscape shifted, showing Earth's major cities. Above each, massive tiers in reality formed, exponentially larger than existing dungeon portals. The gates will open. The generals will come. Ren watched in horror as the vision continued. Enormous entities emerged from the gates, each powerful enough to level cities. Conventional weapons proved useless against them. Only specially trained hunters offered any resistance, and they were hopelessly outnumbered. How do we stop this? You don't, the fragment stated simply. Emerging of realms cannot be prevented, only guided. That is why the Chosen exists, not to prevent the inevitable, but to shape it. I'm just one person, Ren protested. How can I possibly shape something of this magnitude? You are not alone. Others like you awaken across your world, though none have progressed as far. You must find them, unite them. The vision shifted again, showing indistinct figures scattered across the globe, each glowing with potential similar to Ren's own. The generals fear the Chosen, the fragment continued. They will target you specifically once they become aware of your existence. Ren processed this information slowly. I need to become stronger. I need to understand these powers completely. Yes, train, grow, evolve. Time grows short. When Ren finally broke the connection, dawn was approaching. He felt simultaneously exhausted and energized, burdened by knowledge yet empowered by purpose. His interface updated with a notification. Dungeon anomaly detected. Shinmai High School. Energy signature. B rank with unstable properties. Bureau alert status. Elevated. Ren stared at the alert in disbelief. Shinmai High. His former school where his journey had begun. The coincidence was too perfect to be chance. As he prepared to investigate, emergency broadcasts interrupted with breaking news. A dungeon had manifested without warning inside Shinmai High School during early morning activities. Dozens of students and faculty were trapped inside, with rescue operations hampered by unusual energy fluctuations preventing standard extraction procedures. Among the names of those confirmed trapped, Ren saw one that made his blood run cold, Kaido Shimada. His former bully, now reluctant bureau colleague, was inside, along with many others who had ignored and tormented Ren throughout his previous life. The fragment pulsed warmly in his pocket, almost anticipatory. A test, perhaps, or an opportunity. Either way, Ren knew what he had to do. Shinmai High was calling him back, and this time, he would be the one doing the saving. Chaos surrounded Shinmai High School. Emergency vehicles lined the streets, their lights casting eerie pulses across the pre-dawn darkness. Bureau personnel had established a perimeter, keeping frantic parents and onlookers at bay while tactical teams assessed the situation. Above the school, reality itself appeared distorted, the air rippling like heat waves in a pattern Ren recognized all too well. A natural dungeon manifestation, but larger and more unstable than any previously recorded. Ren approached the Bureau Command Center, where Director Katsumi coordinated the response. Her expression was grim as she consulted holographic displays showing the school's layout overlaid with energy readings. "Kizuraji," she acknowledged without looking up. "Your timing is convenient. I received the alert," Ren replied. "This is my assigned zone for anomaly investigation." Indeed. Her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced by the coincidence. Preliminary assessment indicates a B-rank dungeon formation with unusual properties. The manifestation occurred during early faculty meetings and student council activities. 47 individuals confirmed trapped inside. Ren studied the displays. The dungeon energy signature was familiar, disturbingly similar to the hidden type that had changed him. What's the extraction plan? Standard protocols have proven ineffective. The portal resists stabilization techniques and energy dampeners are failing. Katsui gestured to a team of specialized hunters preparing equipment nearby. "We're assembling an emergency response unit to attempt manual extraction. I want to join them." Katsumi finally looked at him directly. "You're E-rank, Kizuraji. This is at minimum a B-rank operation." "I survived a hidden type," Ren countered. "I know how these unstable formations behave, and my sensory abilities could prove useful in locating survivors." She considered him for a long moment. "Your exceptional circumstances have earned you certain allowances, but this goes beyond procedure. The casualty rate for such operations is high even among experienced teams." "All the more reason to use every resource available," Ren pressed, "including me." After a brief internal debate, Katsumi nodded curtly. "You'll accompany Team Alpha in a support capacity only. Stay with your assigned squad leader, follow all commands immediately, and do not engage hostiles unless absolutely necessary." "Clear?" "Clear," Ren agreed, knowing he would likely disregard these restrictions once inside. Team Alpha consisted of 5 veteran hunters, 3 B-rank and 2 A-rank specialists in extraction operations. Their leader, Captain Himura, was a weathered man with a cybernetic eye and arm, scars from past dungeon encounters visible on his face. He regarded Ren skeptically. "Director Katsumi vouches for your sensory abilities," Himura said as the team prepared. "But I need to know you won't panic when things get rough in there, because they will get rough." "I won't be a liability," Ren assured him. Himura seemed unconvinced but nodded. "Stay behind Tanaka and do exactly as instructed. Your only job is to help us locate survivors." All clear. The team completed their preparations, checking equipment and synchronizing communication devices. As they approached the shimmering portal where the school's main entrance had been, Ren felt the dungeon heart fragment pulse warmly in his pocket, responding to the proximity of its kin. "Entering in 3, 2, 1, Himura announced. The team moved forward in practice formation, disappearing into the distortion. Ren followed, the familiar sensation of crossing between worlds washing over him. The school interior had transformed dramatically. Corridors stretched impossibly long, classrooms warped into cavernous chambers. Crystalline growths erupted from walls and floors, pulsing with arcane energy. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Standard search pattern," Himura ordered. "Kizuraji, concentrate on detecting human signatures." Ren extended his senses, pushing past the overwhelming dungeon energy to locate the trapped individuals. "Multiple clusters," he reported, largest group approximately 200 meters ahead, likely in what was the gymnasium. Smaller groups scattered throughout. The gym was designated as the emergency gathering point, another team member noted. Faculty would have directed students there when the manifestation began. "Then that's our primary objective," Himura decided. "Move out, standard formation." They encountered the first hostiles in what had been the science wing, humanoid figures composed of crystalline materials similar to the growths along the walls. The creatures moved with unnatural fluidity, silent but deadly. Crystal constructs, Himura identified. B-rank entities, non-biological, no conventional weaknesses. Hit them hard and fast. The team engaged efficiently, their specialized weapons shattering the constructs with precision strikes. Ren stayed back as instructed, though his fingers itched to cast spells that could end the encounter in seconds. As they progressed deeper, the dungeon's influence intensified. Gravity fluctuated unpredictably. Temporal distortions caused moments to stretch or compress randomly. The team adapted with practiced skill, but Ren could sense their growing concern. "This isn't a standard formation," one hunter muttered. "The energy patterns are evolving, adapting to our presence. Stay focused, Himura ordered. Approaching gymnasium location. What had once been the school gymnasium had transformed into a vast cathedral-like space, its ceiling lost in swirling mists high above. Crystal columns supported archways of impossible geometry. At the center, a group of students and teachers huddled together, surrounded by a circle of the constructs. Among them, Ren recognized familiar faces, faculty members who had ignored bullying, students who had tormented him, and, prominently, Kaido in his bureau uniform standing protectively in front of the civilians despite his obvious injuries. 32 survivors confirmed, Himura reported into his communicator. Preparing for extraction under hostile conditions. The team formulated a rapid extraction plan, but Ren's attention was drawn to something else, a pulsing formation at the far end of the chamber, similar to the throne room in his first dungeon. Power emanated from it in waves, controlling the constructs and shaping the dungeon around them. "We need to move quickly," Ren warned. "Something's coming." Himura gave the signal, and the team sprang into action. They breached the perimeter of constructs with explosive charges, creating a path to the survivors. 2 hunters began establishing a temporary extraction portal while the others provided cover fire. Kaido spotted Ren among the rescue team, his eyes widening in shock and confusion. "Kisaragi, what are you doing here?" Before Ren could respond, the pulsing formation erupted with energy. A massive entity began taking shape, a towering figure of crystalline armor around a core of swirling darkness. Unlike the mindless constructs, this being radiated intelligence and purpose. "Extraction portal at 40%, a hunter called out. "Need 3 more minutes." "We don't have 3 minutes, Himura growled, positioning himself between the materializing entity and the survivors. Ren made his decision. Bureau protocols and pretenses no longer mattered. These people needed his true abilities, not his facade. He stepped forward, ignoring Himura's order to maintain position. Blue energy crackled around his hands as he dropped the constraints he placed on his power. His eyes glowed with arcane light as he addressed the team. "Get them out. I'll hold it back." "Kisaragi, stand down," Himura commanded, but fell silent as Ren's aura manifested visibly, waves of power rolling off him that surpassed anything the veteran hunter had witnessed. The crystalline entity finished forming, a general, just as the fragment had shown him. Its faceted head turned toward Ren with deliberate focus, ignoring all others. At last it spoke, its voice resonating through the chamber like breaking glass. The anomaly reveals itself. Ren raised his hands, casting arcane shield around the survivors and extraction team. "Focus on the portal," he told Himura. "This is between me and him." The general raised a massive crystalline sword, pointing it directly at Ren. "You're the one we feared, the first to awaken." "You know what I am?" Ren questioned, gathering power for his attack. "Chosen," the general hissed, the word filled with contempt. "Abomination. Barrier to glorious convergence." It charged with shocking speed for its size. Ren met the attack head-on, casting Arcane Nova with enough force to shatter the surrounding columns. The explosion of energy temporarily blinded everyone in the chamber. When visibility returned, Ren stood unharmed while the general's armor showed fractures across its surface. The entity regarded him with new wariness. "Impossible," it rumbled. "Your evolution is incomplete." "I'm a quick learner," Ren replied, launching an arcane barrage that forced the general back several steps. The battle escalated rapidly, power clashing against power. Ren matched the general's strength with versatility, adapting his spells to target weaknesses as he identified them. The chamber shook with each exchange, dungeon energy swirling chaotically around them. Behind him, Ren heard the extraction portal humming to life. 60 seconds to activation, someone called out. The general, sensing its opportunity slipping away, gathered its power for a devastating attack. Dark energy coalesced around its sword, threatening to obliterate everything in the chamber. "Ren, we need more time," Himura shouted. In that moment, with his former tormentors watching in awe and fear, Ren embraced his full potential. Drawing on the dungeon heart fragment's power, he cast a spell beyond anything he'd attempted before. Arcane Convergence, he named it as he created it. Reality seemed to fold around him, multiple layers of arcane shields interlocking into a dome that encapsulated the general's attack when it came. The force was tremendous, threatening to shatter Ren's construct, but he held firm, channeling the energy through himself and redirecting it back at its source. The general staggered as his own power rebounded, its crystalline body cracking under the strain. "What are you?" it demanded. Ren advanced steadily, maintaining the spell with one hand while gathering a lance of pure arcane energy in the other. "I am Ren Kisaragi," he announced, his voice carrying throughout the chamber. "The first hunter, and you are not welcome in my world." He thrust the lance forward, driving it through the fractures in the general's armor and into its core. Light erupted from within the entity as it screamed in a language beyond human comprehension. Its form began to disintegrate, crystals falling away to reveal the swirling darkness at its center before that to collapse in on itself. "Portal active," a hunter shouted. "Move now." The survivors rushed toward the extraction point, many looking back at Ren with expressions ranging from fear to awe. Kaido lingered, his face a mask of conflicted emotions. "You," he said simply. "It was always you." Ren met his gaze evenly. "Go. I'll make sure everyone gets out." As the last survivors entered the portal, Himura approached Ren. "The Bureau will have questions," he said quietly. "I know," Ren acknowledged, "but first, let's finish the job." Together, they searched the remaining areas, locating and extracting the last of the trapped individuals. Throughout it all, Ren felt the dungeon responding to him differently than before, almost respectfully, as if recognizing his authority. When they finally emerged from the portal, daylight had broken over Shinmai High School. News drones circled overhead, capturing footage of the rescued students and teachers emerging to tearful reunions with families. And among them walked Ren, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be less than he was. The first hunter had revealed himself to the world. Floodlights bathed the Bureau's press room in harsh illumination as cameras tracked Director Katsumi approaching the podium. 3 days had passed since the Shinmai High incident, days filled with debriefings, examinations, and intense scrutiny for Ren. The world demanded answers about the mysterious young man who had displayed unprecedented abilities against a dungeon entity. Ren stood backstage, watching the monitors as Director Katsumi began the press conference. "Good morning. As you are aware, 3 days ago, an anomalous dungeon manifestation occurred at Shinmai High School. Thanks to the rapid response of Bureau personnel and specialized hunter teams, all 47 trapped individuals were successfully extracted with only minor injuries." She paused, shuffling papers for effect. "What many of you have witnessed through civilian footage is the involvement of a previously classified hunter asset. Today, we are officially acknowledging the existence of a new classification of awakened individual." The room erupted with questions. Katsumi raised a hand for silence. "Hunter Ren Kizareji represents what we now designate as an S-class solo operative. His unique abilities were previously kept confidential for security reasons while we conducted thorough assessment and training protocols." Ren almost laughed at the blatant rewriting of history. The Bureau was scrambling to make it appear they had known about and controlled his abilities all along, rather than admit they had misclassified and underestimated him. "Hunter Kizaraji will now answer a limited number of questions," Katsumi announced, gesturing toward the side of the stage. This was his cue. Ren stepped into the light, dressed in a new uniform the Bureau had provided, sleek black with blue accents emblazoned with an S-rank insignia that hadn't existed until yesterday. The room fell momentarily silent before erupting again with shouted questions. A Bureau communications officer selected journalists one by one. "Hunter Kizaraji, what exactly is an S-class solo operative?" Ren leaned toward the microphone, reciting the carefully prepared answer. "S-class solo designation indicates an awakened individual capable of independently handling threats equivalent to those requiring full hunter teams. My specific abilities involve energy manipulation techniques developed through specialized Bureau training." Another fabrication. Every word had been scripted and rehearsed, designed to reinforce the narrative that Ren was a Bureau success story rather than an oversight they were now trying to control. "Your abilities appear magical in nature. Can you explain how they differ from conventional hunter skills?" "All hunter abilities derive from dungeon energy," Ren replied. "Mine simply manifests in a more visible and versatile form due to rare compatibility factors in my awakening process." The questions continued, each answered with the Bureau's approved messaging. Yes, he had been working under deep cover as an E-rank. No, there were no other S-class solos currently active that could be disclosed. Yes, he remained under Bureau authority and oversight. After 15 minutes, Katsumi returned to the podium, ending the questioning. "Hunter Kizaraji will now return to his duties. The Bureau thanks you for your attendance." They exited the stage together, Katsumi's smile vanishing the moment they were out of camera range. "Acceptable performance," she said tersely. "The official narrative should satisfy public curiosity while maintaining operational security." "And what is the unofficial narrative?" Ren asked as they walked toward the private briefing rooms. "That remains to be determined." She gestured him into a room where several high-ranking officials waited, including some Ren had never seen before. "The Joint Oversight Committee has questions that weren't appropriate for public consumption." The next hours were grueling. Unlike the press conference, these officials weren't interested in maintaining pleasant fictions. They demanded detailed accounts of his abilities, his connection to the dungeon heart fragment, and his communication with the dungeon entity that had recognized him. Ren provided partial truths, revealing enough to seem cooperative, while concealing the full extent of his knowledge and capabilities. He acknowledged the fragment's existence but described it as a power source rather than a sentient artifact. He admitted to the general calling him chosen, but claimed no understanding of its significance. When they finally released him, man had fallen. Ren found his mother waiting in a secure lounge, watching recorded footage of the press conference. She rose when he entered, embracing him tightly. "You look so formal," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Like someone I barely recognize." "It's still me, Mom," Ren assured her, though he understood her sentiment. The transformation was complete now, not just physically, but in every aspect of his identity. "The Bureau has assigned us new housing," she informed him. "A secure compound for high-value assets, they called it. Our things are being moved as we speak." Ren frowned. They didn't waste any time. "They said it's for our protection. After your public appearance, there could be security concerns." Protection or containment, Ren wondered silently. The line between asset and prisoner was growing increasingly thin. The new housing proved to be a luxurious apartment within a heavily guarded bureau complex. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of Tokyo, though Ren noted the glass was reinforced and likely monitored. Every comfort was provided, yet subtle security measures were evident throughout: biometric scanners, motion sensors, and energy-dampening technology integrated into the walls. A gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. The following morning, Ren reported to his new assignment, a specialized training facility deep within Bureau headquarters. The space was enormous, designed to withstand extreme energy outputs without structural damage. A team of researchers observed from a control room above as Ren demonstrated his abilities under controlled conditions. "Impressive control ratio," noted the lead researcher, Dr. Yama, as Ren completed a precision targeting exercise. "Your energy efficiency exceeds our highest recorded measurements." "I've had practice," Ren replied simply. "Indeed." Dr. Yama consulted his tablet. "According to your file, you participated in 17 official hunter operations. Yet your skill level suggests considerably more practical experience." Ren recognized the subtle probe. The Bureau's training simulations are quite thorough. Dr. Yama nodded, not pressing further. "We've prepared a specialized regimen to help you develop your unique abilities within established parameters. Director Katsumi believes you could become our most effective asset against higher-ranked dungeon entities." The day continued with increasingly complex exercises, each designed to measure different aspects of Ren's capabilities. He intentionally performed below his true potential, establishing baselines that would allow him to appear to improve gradually under their guidance, rather than revealing his full power immediately. During a brief break, Ren's Bureau communicators signaled an incoming message. The sender identification showed unknown, but the encryption pattern matched Guild Polaris. He opened it cautiously. "Impressive performance for the cameras. The Bureau builds their narrative while the truth remains hidden. The abyss stirs. Others like you awaken. When you're ready for answers beyond Bureau propaganda, the Guild awaits. NK." Nakamura still watching from the shadows. Ren deleted the message immediately but pondered its implications. If Polaris knew about others like him, it confirmed what the fragment had told him. He wasn't alone. That evening, as Ren meditated in his new apartment, establishing stronger connections with the dungeon heart fragment, he sensed a subtle change in its energy. Opening his eyes, he found it glowing more intensely than before, projecting a small holographic map of Tokyo. Several points pulsed with light, one significantly brighter than the others. "What are these?" Ren asked mentally. "Resonance points," the fragment responded. "Places where the barriers between worlds grow thinnest. The brightest marks the next gate." Ren studied the location. An industrial area near the harbor, far from residential zones but close to critical infrastructure. When? Soon. Days, perhaps hours. The generals prepare a stronger incursion. They know you exist now. They will come prepared. "I'll need to be prepared as well," Ren muttered, reaching a decision he had been contemplating since the press conference. The Bureau wanted to control him, use him as a weapon against the dungeons without understanding the true nature of the threat. Guild Polaris offered knowledge but demanded loyalty to their shadowy agenda. Neither path would allow him the freedom to fulfill his role as chosen. It was time to forge his own way. Late that night, when Bureau surveillance would be at its minimum, Ren left his apartment through conventional means. He rode the elevator down, nodded to the security personnel, and walked openly toward the training facilities. All perfectly normal behavior for a dedicated hunter. Once inside the empty training room, he activated his full abilities, creating an energy distortion that briefly masked his signature from the monitoring systems. In that window, he slipped out through a maintenance access and disappeared into the city. His destination was a small, anonymous safe house he had prepared weeks earlier using funds from unofficial dungeon runs. There he found the equipment he had cached, specialized gear, supplies, and most importantly, freedom from constant observation. As dawn approached, Ren stood on the roof watching the city awaken. His communicator had been buzzing with increasingly urgent messages from the Bureau, but he ignored them. They would track him eventually, but not before he had done what was necessary. The dungeon heart fragment pulsed warmly in his pocket as Ren looked toward the harbor, where the next gate would open. The Bureau would follow their protocols, respond reactively, contain and control. He needed to be proactive, to strike first. But he wouldn't do it alone. Somewhere in this vast city, others like him were awakening to their potential, confused and isolated as he once was. The fragment could help him find them. Together, they might stand a chance against what was coming. The first hunter would become the first leader. Storm clouds gathered over Tokyo Bay, unnaturally dark and swirling with internal energy that regular citizens couldn't perceive, but Ren could see clearly. Bureau alert systems blared throughout the city, triggering emergency protocols and evacuation orders for the harbor district. Something massive was coming precisely where the dungeon heart fragment had predicted. From his vantage point atop a waterfront warehouse, Ren observed Bureau forces establishing a perimeter. Hunter teams took up strategic positions, their specialized equipment glinting in the strange half-light. Director Katsumi herself coordinated operations from a mobile command center, her expression grim as she studied real-time data on the growing anomaly. They were prepared for a standard dungeon manifestation, even a large one. They weren't prepared for what was truly coming. Ren touched the fragment in his pocket, drawing on its knowledge. How many? 3 generals, it responded, greater than the one you faced. They bring an advanced force. An invasion, Ren murmured. The beginning of one. He had spent the past 24 hours searching for others like himself, following the fragment's guidance to resonance points throughout the city. He found 2, a young woman named Mira, who could manipulate temporal fields, and an older man named Takeshi, whose awakening had granted him matter transmutation abilities. Both had been hiding their true potential, both recognized something kindred in Ren immediately. They now flanked him on the warehouse roof, watching the Bureau's preparations with skeptical eyes. They're setting up a containment grid, Takeshi noted, his weathered face creased with concern. Standard procedure for B-rank manifestations, utterly inadequate for what's coming. Should we warn them? Mira asked, brushing silver-streaked hair from her face. She looked barely 20, though her eyes held the wisdom of someone much older. Ren considered this. They wouldn't believe us without explanations we don't have time to give. Better to position ourselves to intervene when their defenses fail. The fragment suddenly pulsed with urgency. It begins. Above the harbor, the clouds parted to reveal not sky, but a tear in reality itself. A vast, circular portal swirling with colors that human eyes weren't designed to process. The Bureau's sensors overloaded instantly, equipment shorting out with explosive force. Hunters and officials staggered back as overwhelming energy cascaded from the opening. That's no ordinary dungeon portal, Takeshi whispered, awe and fear mingling in his voice. It's a gate, Ren confirmed, direct access to the Abyss realm. Through the gate came 3 towering figures, each distinct yet equally terrible. One appeared composed of living metal, body constantly shifting and reforming. Another seemed woven from darkness itself, trailing shadows like ghostly appendages. The third glowed with radioactive fire, its steps leaving molten footprints on the concrete below. The generals had arrived. Bureau forces responded immediately, deploying their most powerful weapons and abilities. A-rank hunters launched coordinated attacks while support teams maintained defensive barriers around evacuation zones. Their efforts barely registered against the generals, who advanced with methodical purpose, crushing resistance effortlessly. Now Ren commanded, leaping from the roof with preternatural grace. Mira and Takeshi followed, each activating their unique abilities. They landed amid chaos. Bureau personnel fled in all directions as structures collapsed around them. Director Katsumi shouted orders into a communicator that no longer functioned, her composure finally cracking in the face of overwhelming threat. She spotted Ren approaching and her eyes widened. Kisaragi, where have you been? We need your abilities immediately. Evacuate your people, Ren replied calmly. Get civilians clear of the harbor district. We'll handle the generals. We. Her gaze shifted to Mira and Takeshi. Who are they? Like me, Ren said simply. Now go. Perhaps it was his tone or the confidence that radiated from him, but Director Katsumi hesitated only briefly before nodding. All Bureau personnel fall back to secondary containment positions, she ordered. Priority on civilian evacuation. As Bureau forces retreated, Ren turned to face the advancing generals. They had noticed him now, their alien attention focusing with predatory intensity. The Chosen rumbled the metal general, his voice grinding like tectonic plates shifting. The first hunter. You cannot stop convergence, added the Shadow General, its words seeming to come from everywhere at once. Your world will become one with the Abyss. Ren stepped forward, arcane energy swirling around him visibly now. You're not welcome here. Return to your realm or be destroyed. The fire general laughed, the sound causing nearby windows to shatter. Your evolution is incomplete. You are nothing compared to our power. He's not alone, Mira declared, stepping beside Ren. The air around her shimmered as she manipulated temporal fields, slowing the advance of the Shadow General. The Abyss isn't the only realm with power, Takeshi added, transmuting the ground beneath the metal general into quicksand-like substance that momentarily disrupted its balance. The battle erupted with cataclysmic force. Each general commanded powers beyond conventional understanding, warping reality around them as they attacked. Buildings crumbled under stray energy discharges. The harbor waters boiled and receded, exposing the seabed. Yet the three awakened matched them step for step. Ren unleashed spells of unprecedented complexity, drawing on the fragment's knowledge to counter the general's attacks. Mira created temporal bubbles where enemy movements slowed to crawls while her own attacks happened at normal speed. Takeshi transmuted matter with precise calculation, turning the environment itself into a weapon. For civilians watching from safe distances and news helicopters circling above, the scene defied comprehension. 6 figures wielding forces that rewrote the rules of physics, their conflict reshaping the harbor with each exchange. The Bureau's cameras captured everything, broadcasting globally as humanity witnessed the true scale of the dungeon threat for the first time. This was no isolated manifestation to be contained and cleared. This was war. They're holding back, Takeshi called out during a momentary lull. Testing our capabilities. Then let's show them what we're truly capable of, Ren replied. He reached for the dungeon heart fragment, no longer keeping it hidden, but drawing it forth openly. The crystal pulsed with blinding light as Ren channeled its full power, combining it with his own evolved abilities. Arcane Convergence, total manifestation, he invoked, naming a spell created in that very moment. Reality bent around Ren as his form shifted, temporarily transcending physical limitations. Blue energy coalesced into armor that mirrored the crystalline structure of the fragment, encasing him in living light. Wings of pure arcane power extended from his back, lifting him into the air above the battlefield. The generals reacted with visible alarm, combining their attacks into a unified beam of destructive force aimed directly at Ren. The impact was tremendous, visible from kilometers away as a collision of powers that momentarily outshone the sun. When the light faded, Ren remained hovering in the air, his arcane armor cracked but intact. He raised both hands, gathering energy from the ambient magic released by the battle and the gate itself. Your invasion ends here, he proclaimed, his voice carrying unnaturally across the devastated harbor. This world is protected. The energy he had gathered compressed into a single point of impossible density before exploding outward in a precisely directed wave. It struck the generals with overwhelming force, driving them back toward the gate. Their forms began to destabilize, physical manifestations failing under the assault. This is not over, the Shadow General hissed as his body dissolved. We are merely the vanguard. The Abyss will come for this world. And I'll be waiting, Ren answered. With a final surge of power, he closed the distance to the gate itself. Using the fragment as a focus, he began to seal the massive portal, forcing its energies to collapse inward. The process threatened to tear him apart, arcane backlash shattering his manifested armor and sending him plummeting toward the ground below. Mira caught him in a temporal field, slowing his fall until Takeshi could transmute debris into a soft landing platform. They gathered around Ren as he struggled to his feet, physically drained but victorious. The gate above shrank rapidly, the generals fully banished back to their realm. When the portal finally closed with a thunderclap of displacing air, silence fell across the devastated harbor district. The battle was over, but its implications were just beginning to unfold. Bureau forces cautiously approached, led by Director Katsumi, whose expression mixed awe with calculation. News helicopters circled lower, capturing footage of the three awakened standing amid the ruins. The world will never be the same after today, Mira observed quietly. It was already changing, Ren replied. We just made the threat visible. As Bureau personnel established a new perimeter, Ren sensed a presence watching from afar. On a distant rooftop stood a woman in a black cloak, her features indistinguishable at this distance. Something about her resonated with the fragment, suggesting powers similar to his own, but more refined, more evolved. She raised a hand in what might have been acknowledgement or warning before turning away. The fragment pulsed with recognition. Who was that? Takeshi asked, following Ren's gaze. I don't know, Ren admitted, but I think we'll find out soon. The woman vanished from sight, leaving only a lingering impression of significance. Whoever she was, she had been watching and waiting. So, Director Katsumi said as she reached them, surveying the unprecedented destruction around them. The first hunter and his companions. Care to explain what really happened here? Ren exchanged glances with his new allies before answering. The dungeons aren't random phenomena, Director. They're portals to another realm that's attempting to merge with ours. What you witnessed today was the first direct incursion. There will be more. And you three are what exactly? The first line of defense, Ren stated simply. Not Bureau assets, Matt Guild pawns. Something new. As emergency services and recovery teams flooded into the area beginning the enormous task of rebuilding, Ren felt the weight of his new roles settling upon him. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with battles both physical and political. The Bureau would want control, the guilds would scheme for advantage, and ordinary people would look to him with either hope or fear. But for the first time since emerging from that initial dungeon, transformed and alone, Ren felt truly purposeful. He was the first hunter, the first to awaken to his true potential. Others would follow, guided by his example. The war had begun, but humanity now had champions equal to the threat. And leading them stood Ren Kizareji, once overlooked and powerless, now the hope of a world under siege.